What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Antler Up Podcast. I'm joined by fellow gear junkie from another mother. I got Cameron Derr on the podcast. Cam, dude, it's a pleasure always to catch up, see your face. Man, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. When you asked me to come on, I was like, if people want to hear again, I suppose I will. But it's my honor, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to have you on because these flow so much better. I always feel like when you just get that introduction to someone, it takes that 15 minutes to get things rolling. And, obviously you feel like you might know these people because of either connection of someone through someone else, messaging them on social media or whatever, you've seen them somewhere else. But man, nothing beats when you actually have a cool friendship with someone and you're able to just BS and talk about.
Yeah, I think the first time we talked, you asked me for like the baseball card, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me every time I talk to someone now. I'm like, so if you had a baseball card, what would be on it? And that's how I get to know people now.
That's awesome, dude. I like that. So, Cam, let's kind of like jump right into it, man, because right now it's a weird time, where some people are out doing stuff. Like I got family stuff going on with a new baby. I haven't had a chance to step foot in the woods at all and since basically the end of hunting season. So that time is coming for me. There's certain weekends I'm excited for, but man, even like more so, I'm excited for some 3D season. So like, what are you doing right now? Because it is that odd time frame.
Yeah, we call this time frame like the dog days of whitetail. I mean, there's plenty of scouting to be had if you have ground to pound or if you have time to do it. For me right now, my biggest priority is working on my shot process. Last year, going into last year, I had a lot of issues with target panic, and I was trying new bows and trying new things. And as I've been diving down and learning more about archery, I want to become a better archer. I think my word means nothing if I can't shoot 20 yards, So my shot process has been the number one thing. I started getting coaching lessons.
Okay.
There's a young man named Mason Springer. This kid's 14 years old, and he just went and placed like 7th at Lancaster, missed the final stage by 1 point. He's the real deal, and he shoots for Exodus, and he offered to do some Zoom FaceTime coaching lessons. So I just started that last week, and then I'll continue that up through TAC probably, and I'll test myself out there.
Heck yeah, man. Dude, that is awesome. And those Zoom calls really do work. Even like last time when we talked, those a couple years ago, when I said I went through some stuff, that's one of the big things that Jim DiAgostino, he helped me with. And he would just say, put your phone here. I would go through shot process and he would walk me through certain situations and dude, hold, do not go yet. Okay. See how that feels? Control your mind a little bit. Okay. When you're ready. And that process, it does work. So like if someone listening to this being like over Zoom or over video, you can do that.
Yeah. And I think honestly, the biggest benefit to it is I'm recording the call.
Mm-hmm.
I can go back and watch myself. So when he's telling me my hips are out of place, I could see it. Like if I'm shooting a bow and I'm looking at the target, I can't see what my hips are doing. So even if you're not going to go through lessons or whatever, record yourself shoot and then go back and look at it. But what helped me is now I know what to look for. Mm-hmm. Before, if I would have shot and before he told me my shoulders weren't in the right alignment or my hips weren't square, I don't think I would know how to correct it. So he told me how to correct those things. Now every time I'm shooting at least 3 or 4 arrows, I'm recording myself to see like, okay, you're still not doing this correct, or now you have that on point. So it kind of gives you what it's supposed to look like and how it feels in the same realm.
Yeah. So what's your goal with it? Like what as far as I know, you said you hopefully come TAC, you'll be rocking and rolling and along those lines. And I know, like you said, your word doesn't mean to you, your word doesn't mean crap if you can't perform in a sense, but overall, like where do you want to take this?
I just want to be a proficient archer. I'm not going to compete. I'm a bow hunter. And I'm a whitetail bow hunter at that sense. I just want to have full confidence that when I go into the woods, that when I draw my bow back, I don't have to worry about myself. It's going to be second nature. And I just never put enough work into it. I think I heard Joel Turner say like archery is the only thing the more you do it, the worse you get at it.
Mhm.
And when I started, honestly, I like never had any second guessing. I was like, no, dude, if I draw back, that animal's done.
Dead. Yeah.
And I've had some hiccups, and I've gotten humbled really quickly. And I was like, I need to work on my shot. So throughout the off season, that's all I'm doing is focusing on making sure that I can pull a shot off. Because if I get into the moment of truth and fumble, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah. I do agree with Joel on that. Do you?
Oh yeah, I'm experiencing it.
Yeah. Because
It's your body's trying to become more efficient, and it's trying to do things quicker. And like you get back, you anchor, and you just punch the trigger because your body's like, oh no, we know how to do this. We can do it faster. And that you always are trying to be more efficient as a human being. So I fully believe it.
Yeah, I do too, because I've said it multiple times on the podcast where, years ago when I was shooting my little Hoyt, whatever, I had zero fear shooting around anybody. I'd be like, yeah, you want me to hit that little dime circle? You got it, man. I would rip it whether I hit it or not. I had full confidence. And then it's like when you go down this rabbit hole of like, wow, there's so much more to it. There's a thumb button. And we've talked about this before. That's when shit got crazy for me and went down the tubes. And I had to climb back out of that. And again, I'm not even where I want to be. Last year, going into the season, I felt as confident as I've felt in all of the years, not just in my hunting quote unquote ability, but my shot. And that's it. That kind of bled into the hunting aspect of things.
And you had a killer year.
Yeah, I had an awesome year. I can't complain, man. Like I said, the thing that I loved most about this past year was actually being able to recover these animals within no more than 50, 60 yards. Like that to me, like shot placement, watched in the arrow, hit exactly where I was looking at. Man, there was no better feeling. I don't care what it was, a doe, a buck, whatever. It was the best feeling as far as hunting goes.
Yeah, I can't echo that anymore. I mean, and what started everything was like having a few shots that I couldn't immediately celebrate. It was like a shot, I was like, I don't know. And that kept happening. And I was like, what's going on? I need to fix this.
Yeah. Dude, that's exciting though that you're doing this, because I've gone down this rabbit hole. I've talked to previous guests, Ryan Cornelius. He did the Lancaster archery thing because he helps out the guys with bowhunter die, and he's been working the event the last couple of years. Well, finally this year, Todd and they shot it, and Justin, they all shot it, and it was like, he goes, oh man, he was like one of those bottom tier ones. He's like, it was just for that experience and to do it. I was like, man, I give you kudos, because to get up on that line with 400 people going across the whole thing, like, dude, that's pretty cool. And like you said, man, I'm a bow hunter, but I love you played basketball, so that competitiveness is in you. And, and that's where I played sports too. That's where that comes into, and we just want to get better at this. And, you could sit there and say, oh, we owe it to the animal, whatever, and which we do, but it's also for us to go out there and feel confident as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I like it, man, dude. So with this past year, like I said, I introduced you as my brother from another mother as far as gear goes and all that type of stuff. What were some of the new things that you tested out or ran, or things? I know I listening to you on the podcast, like you were saying, you finally feel like you're dialed in. With your setup. And dude, just as far as shooting goes, that's also a really good feeling, knowing like I really don't got to mess with anything. I got it down.
Yeah, it kind of like it feels good, but I'm a gear guy, so it kind of sucks that I'm not like playing with new things and trying new things. And people are like, did you see this or did you see that? And I'm almost like, I don't want to. I don't want to see it, because I'm going to end up messing with it, and then it's going to change my whole routine up. But no, I not last year, the year before, I switched climbing sticks from the B sticks to the tethered 1 sticks, and like hands down, shit like that fit me perfectly. The packability, the weight, everything. I say that it's not really other than the weight, it's not really the best climbing stick at anything, but it's good enough in everything. And it just kind of fit perfectly. I also last year changed my pack. That was the biggest change that I needed to make. I was running the Sitka tool belt, and I found out that on an out-of-state rut hunt, it wasn't enough. I thought I could make it work. So I switched to the tethered fast pack, and that is a really, really awesome
Yeah.
pack. And then for everything else stayed the same. Latitude X-Wing platform, Latitude tool panel saddle, and I ran the Timber Ninja Ultimate saddle a little bit too. But as far as like process, gear, pack, I'm finally where I'm like, okay, I can climb any tree and I can get in any situation I need to get in.
Right. Did you use an aider at all?
I did. So I used the Ultimator on the bottom step, and then just like a am steel rope on the second step, and then I just used 3 sticks.
3 sticks, yeah. That's the one aspect that this year my biggest change was to rappel down. I mean, the whole process getting up stayed the same, still using sticks, multiple sticks, using the aider. My thing was, I was like, let me just try it, just because of coming down at night with the aiders was like a pain in the butt.
Sure.
Climbing up, man, I feel like a monkey. I'm like, you could get up there, take your time, obviously, but I've always felt extremely confident climbing up. But the coming down part was always the little wonky thing, especially in the dark, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let me just try to rappel down, see how it goes. I had the equipment basically already, as far as like the rope and the Mad Rock. Man, I loved it. The only thing my scattered brain does sometimes is, man, there was only 2 times where I forgot to hook in my little rope to retrieve my tether rope.
Yeah.
So I had to climb right back up and put things up back up. But yeah, actually, long story short, one of the last deer that I shot here in PA, I didn't even post about it. It was just kind of like a little rodeo. Last deer I shot this year, I climbed down. I told my wife, I was like, listen, last shooting light, I forget what it was. There was like 7 minutes to go. And this is in January, and our baby was already born. She brought her over to my in-laws. It was my last like hunt of the year, and I was like, you know what? I like scanned. You could see as far away as you can. And I was like, I'll get down. I got a little bit of time to walk out. I'll, whatever. Dude, I get down. I'm like, dang it, I forgot to put the rope on. My last hunt, right, of the year. All of a sudden, this doe flies right down. And I was like, what is she doing? I pick up my bow, and she's only like 15, 20 yards. She starts walking across, and yeah, let her rip, and right at last light. Go ahead.
Heck yeah.
So I was like, okay, there's that deer. So, but yeah, I forgot to do that rope on that last hunt, and it actually kind of helped me out, because then I was like, all right, well, this is a rodeo. Go find her, climb back up, get everything torn. It was just a mess. I was like, go figure, last hunt of the year. But
that's the way to end.
Yeah, that's the way to done. I was like, okay, I'm done, honey. She's like, was that your last tag? I was like, yes, it was my last tag. And she's like, all right, good. Baby's here. You got to be, I was like, all right, I got you. But no, man, that's cool, because kind of like you, like I said, rappelling for me was the big thing. I switched over midway through once I got the Ultra Lock saddle. That kind of helped me out with the whole doing the rappel, just because of the pockets on the side. So I think I think even, obviously I use the shoulder straps, but man, if you already have certain pieces of gear and you want a new saddle and they have that stripped down version, that one's a really cool little new saddle, just because you could put whatever pockets on that you might have, or if you want to try that new one, the new pocket style, you could get that. So like you said, there are some new pieces of gear that coming out that people could look at for sure.
Absolutely.
What broadheads did you use this year?
I shot the Tooth of the Arrow 125 grain vented 1-inch.
Okay.
It's like a 4-blade little tiny thing, but I was throughout testing, that was the best penetrating, obviously, because it's the smallest, but it flew really, really well. And that's obviously probably pretty obvious too, because it's the smallest profile. But and for everything that I need, it was the best option. And when you think about like old times, you think about ancient folks that had to hunt for life. When they were hunting big game animals, their broadheads were small because they needed penetration, and that's how they ate. So we all want big cuts, and we want big broadheads, and we want blood trails. Yeah, and it's kind of counterintuitive. We need penetration, and then you're going to find the animal. You just have to do your job.
So that leads me to this, Cam, because going off of, like, obviously you've been practicing your shooting ability, but throughout these last couple of years, because of Exodus creating the aerospace and getting involved in that, like, you guys went really deep into it. Like, you didn't just half-ass this endeavor. You've been doing some cool testing and doing it for many years, even before you guys finally came to the market with it, basically. So, like, pre-market, coming to market, and still trying to improve and continue to elevate and innovate things. So with that, man, like, over the last couple of years, what are some of the really not mind blowing, but like light bulb moments, and like, wow, I had a whole different thought on that. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm coming to my own as far as like, yeah, you don't really need that or whatever. What are some of those things that you found that are really kind of, that you took out of it?
So when we started everything, we were working with Fireknock, Dorge from Fireknock, and he has a really, really, really great technology, right? And we went into the testing, and we were like, this is going to be the best thing ever. So we rented a 10,000 frames per second camera, and we started doing a bunch of testing and learning about how the parabolic action of arrows, and if you do this to the arrow, what happens? If you do this to the arrow, what happens? And unfortunate for us, and probably like everyone that loves arrows and stuff, like, what we found was that every change that you make is so minuscule that it's so hard to see a difference. And before we got into the whole reason Chad and I even were like, this needs to happen, is because there was a gap in education in archery. Every product space that we get into, it's like there's a gap in education. Trail cameras, there was a huge gap in the marketplace on the education side. Arrows, we felt like was the same way, and there was only a handful of people trying to educate folks. And the education that we were receiving was towards ranch fairy, right? High FOC, adult arrows, and it has its place, but it was, if you really dive down and study it, it really is more relative to traditional archery. And we kind of drank the Kool-Aid and had some poor experiences. So we were trying to figure out a way, like, so what is actually right for a modern compound bow? And we quickly realized that there is not necessarily a right. You know what I mean? There's not like you have to do it this way. If you're shooting pigs in Texas on a feeder 20 yards away, that you know that, absolutely the most lethal way is to have a cut on contact blade that's heavy and sharp and penetrates like a mofo. That's 100% the best. If you're out west and you're hunting elk and you need to shoot 70 yards, that's not the best. So you have to kind of go into it thinking like, what is my application? But we went into all that testing thinking we were going to like set the world on fire. And we kind of quickly realized that like it's so situational and there's no one way to skin the cat. So the biggest thing that we found, the biggest key to penetration in arrows is arrow flight. If your arrow flight is poor, you suffer, your penetration suffers quicker than anything else. So what you need to focus on is the flight of the arrow. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to get perfect arrow flight, but our focus has been from then on, how do we get people an arrow that's going to fly the best, and everything else comes.
So when you were even like going back to that arrow flight first, this past year, since I got that new camera in the spring, I was learning new settings and stuff like that, especially tinkering around with slow motion. And man, well, anytime that I shot in slow motion and watching that arrow flight, it was really cool to see like that was always my first thing. Like when I would watch friends or other people post, I'm like, oh my gosh, that arrow flight's terrible, or like whatever, you know what I mean? And then when I was watching it, so I was like, please, 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 and I was like, whoo, look at that, that's nice and good. Like I like that. And you know, that's I couldn't I could see why that plays a big factor in that, because it's, you know, kind of if you go off of just straight line, the fastest way you're going to get somewhere is in that straight line. So if it's wobbling all over the place, that's not really going to do you any good, as far as simpler terms to put it. And like how you were saying, you're trying new things and you thought you're going to light the world on fire with stuff. Is that where you were like talking about, like for materials and components like brass and aluminum and different fletchings? And, you know, we were talking about that impact, you know, what are some of those things? Because man, I used to be dead set. Like, I like that half out. I like this, and I'm blah, 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 blah. I'm not a big fan of collars. I feel like that really puts a hinder on that arrow flight in particularly. But you know, what are some of the things that you found with like the components?
So, I'm also not a big fan of collars, and we were both running a collar system before we were shooting our arrows. Excuse me. And the collar is always the weak point. The collar's always going to bend, and that actually just inherently components are like the Achilles heel to arrows. Like that's always the part that you're going to struggle with. I prefer the fully encompassed insert system, whether it's like a hit insert or if you're shooting a standard diameter shaft where the insert system is fully inside the shaft. But what's unique with what we're doing is the arrow concept from FireNock, which is the 6-inch carbon tube. It enhances the structural integrity of your full insert system. So you say for the half out, you have like a 1-inch piece of material. Well, now that whole system becomes 7 inches, and it just becomes a stronger platform. So that arrow concept, the CTI, it's called arrow concept. It's called the 6-inch carbon tube in the front 6 inches of the shaft is everything to our arrow system. It is the biggest benefit. It's the key to everything that we're doing. So the key to getting better arrow flight, the key to getting better penetration, it's everything. It's that 6-inch carbon tube.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. And man, just again, from the 6 deer that I shot this year, right? It ended up being 6 for 6 with a pass through, and only one out of those 6 I cannot shoot again.
Yeah.
Like I could literally, like, so if you're an individual where you don't buy arrows every single year, like just because, again, me being the nerd, I'm gonna be like, hey, I need another fresh half dozen next year just for strictly my hunting arrows, because that's what I did this year, right? This past year, I'll do that again. But if money was a situation where I'm like, I can't put that forth, I have something going on. Hell, even if next year, this upcoming hunting season, that if that were to come for me, I'm okay with that, because I know I got 5 solid good ones. That's all I'm going to put in my quiver anyway. And I have my backup NIS arrows anyway that I was shooting with that weigh the same and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's a really kudos, because man, there's been times where every time I've ever shot an arrow through a deer, passed through, something broke. Back end, front end, or it's just wobbly. But man, I checked them, I cleaned them, I spun them. They're good to go, man.
Is that with the MMT?
No, that's what the NIS even.
The NIS? Yeah, that's the smaller diameter shaft is going to inherently be more durable because the wall is thicker. Mm-hmm. Are you shooting aluminum inserts on those?
No, I have the brass, I think, on those ones.
The stainless.
The stainless. So what we ended up doing was my MMTs and those NIS ended up weighing the exact same, like 460.
Yeah. So we went aluminum on the MMT and stainless on the NIS. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That stainless insert is the way to go with the NIS. The stainless steel is just a stronger material. If I do have any advice for you with those arrows, if you are going to reshoot them, just change the nock. Anytime you shoot an arrow through an animal that touches the ground, your nock is the only thing that touches the string. It's the only thing that makes it go off. It's like $7 for 10 knocks or something. Mm-hmm. Replace that nock, because if that is compromised in any way, it's going to be a bad day.
Yeah, good tip on that one. What have you found as far as weight? Because I'm sure, like, being that you guys are, like, obviously you have the really cool tool online, you go on, you build them, you get that estimate, but I'm sure you have certain individuals where they're like, man, I want this specific weight, like, get me here, whatever, and involved in all this testing. What have you found to be like bread and butter, or like, hey, listen, during our testing, this is kind of, you're okay.
Yeah. So I think people need to maybe change their mindset. Instead of focusing on weight, focusing on what speed you need to be, and then whatever weight gets you there. So I want to launch my arrow at like 280 feet per second. 280 to 290 feet per second is like kind of where I need to be. So for me, an arrow that weighs 425 grains gets me there. Okay. If I go to a 480, which is going to have more momentum and it's going to be a better penetrator, so to speak, I'm shooting too slow at that point. So I try to get in that 280 feet per second range, 280 to 290. And for me, that's a 425 grain arrow. But it seems like the majority of folks are falling between 420 to 480. And excuse me, that seems to be the real sweet spot. Now, with the 250 spine shaft, stainless steel inserts, 150 grain broadhead builds, like, people are over 500. And there is a benefit to being that heavy. But anytime that you are adding something, you're giving something up. So when you're adding weight, you're giving up trajectory. So you just have to be happy with the trajectory of the arrow, and then everything comes second. So that's why I focus on the speed number, because that is what's going to tell me my trajectory.
Yeah. Well, I like that, because I'm a 27.5-inch draw. Where do you fall, Cam?
27.5.
Yeah. So we're in that same boat. And that's where, I was talking to you. I know I mentioned it to you at the outdoor show and everything like that. I would like to get some MNTs made up for my 3D season. That's what I shot last year, shot them extremely well. I still have them, but again, I there's somewhere I want to tinker and go a little bit lighter, like I do, and try to be where you're at, like you were saying, that 420. What was really cool last year, Cam, when last year there was an inaugural archery shoot back where I grew up in Northeastern Pennsylvania. It's at Montage Mountain, so it's really far for you guys. It's even way past Seven Springs, but it was so awesome because I used to go there as a kid at their ski, it's just like TAC. It's like a ski, facility basically. And we shot it. And the first shot was like a 60-yard semi-decline on a mule deer. Drilled it. Okay, cool. But then the second shot, man, was a 117-yard shot on a bison.
The second shot,
like let's, and it was a big open field. It was really cool. And I was with Jim, who backed his 80-pound limbs down to 70 because of just shooting all day. My buddy Josh is like a 31-inch draw. I think he was shooting 80 pounds too. I mean, he's a monster, man. Like he's the definition of a silverback gorilla. You know what I mean? Like that's
Chad.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're like, who's shooting first? And I was like, let me rip at it. And Jim was like, okay, I'll line you up and I'll see, like, keep going up above, keep going above. Dude, I hit the 10 ring, and out of everybody's first shot, I was the only one that hit it right away. They I think one went under, one went over. But it was just awesome to see that arrow flight. I mean, it was thunk. Like it was really neat to see. But yeah, at 117, I think I used my bottom pin was at like 88, 90 ish.
Oh, wow.
Is where I was, and I just lifted it up, and he was like, go aim right there, and I think you'll be good. And dude, I sunk it. And again, I given kudos to Aeroflight and having the right bow build. I was tuned, and but those MNTs, man, as far as like my 3D setup was, they flew awesome. I really enjoyed them. So like when I talk about it and I run that add on the podcast, like I truly do believe in those arrows. Like, I mean, they're great. Like you guys did a lot of testing, and and I'm more than happy to support friends too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And the testing goes beyond us, right? The testing, and especially with the MMT, is the arrow concept is Dorges from Firelock, and that's been patented for a really long time. So it's proven technology, and it just that is the biggest advantage that we have found that you can put into your arrow shaft. And there's another fella, I think his name's Luke Palmer, that just did a YouTube series on like what is the biggest factor that plays into penetration. And he is also in the same field that arrow flight has to be number one before anything else. And he talks about down the road, he takes a pool noodle, right? Takes a pool noodle, and he changes the FOC of the pool noodle, and then like holds a different part of the noodle and pushes down on it, and eventually something's going to give, right? And it's going to bend. So the front end of your arrow shaft has to be able to withstand as much pressure as possible without giving to penetrate better. So having that 6-inch carbon tube inside already your arrow gives you that much more ability to get past. So take something like a pool noodle, or take something and like press it square on something, and it's going to be a lot harder for it to give. But if you take it and impact that on an angle, it's going to give a lot quicker, right? If the structural integrity of the front of your shaft is not there, you're going to deflect and you're not going to get the penetration you want. So you need that structural integrity of the front of your arrow shaft is going to be the biggest advantage you can have. So you could do that in a few different ways. You could shoot a 200 grain broadhead and have a ton of FOC and have a less than stellar trajectory. Pin gaps are going to be crazy. Or you can use this arrow concept system. It's a 30 grain 6-inch carbon tube that does a hell of a lot more for your arrow than just that. But it's kind of a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. So for you, do you keep that same weight as far as that being in that 420 range as like for hunting and 3D?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So for hunting, I was like 450, and that's only because I put a lighted knock on the end of the, so the weight didn't go to the front, it went to the back. And it was like a 27 grain knock that I added, so it was like 448, 450. That's with a 125 grain broadhead too, so it's not a 100 grain head. And I don't change that for 3D or hunting. I think eventually I will. I think I'll shoot a 350 spun shaft and cut it down a little shorter to get as light as possible for 3D, just to have as flat of an arrow as possible. But right now, I want to have as much confidence in my hunting setup as possible, so that's what I'm going to shoot all year.
Yeah. I think that's really important, though, that you can honestly sit there and answer questions for a customer where they might say, listen, I need a dozen or a dozen and a half arrows that need to last me from right now, the beginning of March, until next March. Whether I'll be shooting local 3D, I'll be hunting with them, I'll be doing whatever. And for you to be able to sit there and answer like, listen, we could build you this arrow and it's going to give you like what you're like, how you were saying, if you want that trajectory to be whatever, but man, if you want to stretch it out, like this will kill, but it will also be pretty good this will be really good on the 3D course as well for you. Like, I think that's really important, and that's important for people to understand. Like, you can do both. You don't have to, like, we could nerd out and be like, I'm building that 3D arrow and I'm building this specific hunting arrow. Like, you can, but you also can use one for both.
Yeah, I did a study last year with like a lab radar, and that's a really cool tool. It tells you the speed of your arrow at launch, and then you can set distances, and it's like a chronograph, but it's for the distance, right? So the arrow, I did like 350 70 grain arrow, a 444 grain arrow, and a 560 grain arrow. And I shot them all and took like the momentum numbers, kinetic energy, time to target. And the 444 grain arrow, in my eyes, was the best option. It gave you enough momentum and kinetic energy to kill anything in North America, and it got there faster than the 560 grain arrow. And in my mind, like, what else do you need?
Right, exactly. So let me ask you this, just because a couple weeks ago there was that craze. You see it on YouTube if you get on there. A lot of people were doing vein testing. You know what I mean? Like there's always that week of like next thing you know we're gonna be like 100 grain, 85 grain, 125. Like that's gonna be the next little video series that people are gonna be testing out. I mean, again, we're in those dog days, I guess you could say. As far as veins go, man, what have you noticed like with that?
So veins were one of the things that I took a high interest in because I was just trying to figure it out, right? There's this guy says you need 4, this guy says you don't need 4, this guy says you need to shoot this vein. And I'm not fully, I don't have a full understanding yet of like what is actually happening, but for everything that I've learned, for 2 reasons. Number one, it's because people are wanting to shoot bigger broadheads. And if you need to shoot a big broadhead, you need more stability of your arrow. You need more control. 4 veins is going to give you more control. So it almost becomes a necessity in that sense. It also, people are like, man, my arrow flight is so much better with 4 veins. And like, take it with a grain of salt, whatever. 4 veins is going to hide your flaws more, right? If you have flaws within your grip or your face pressure on your string or your bow's not fully tuned, 4 veins is going to correct that faster than 3. So for most people that I talk to and are buying the arrows, I ask them like, how proficient of an archer are you? I'm just an everyday guy. Shoot 4 veins. You're going to have the best stability. You can shoot any broadhead. You can put a mechanical broadhead on it. You can shoot an iron will. You can shoot a grizzly stick. You have the most wide variety. But there is a downside, right? 4 veins, more drag, slows your arrow down more. How much? I haven't fully finished that test yet. I am in the process of it. There are people that say you can shoot a 3 vein broadhead, higher profile, and get the same stability as a 4 vein. The downside there becomes noise. The higher profile veins tend to flutter a little bit more and you'll get more noise. So it really ends up becoming, the question of veins is fully reliant on what broadhead you're shooting. And if you're a mechanical guy, you can get away with a lot of things. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're a fixed blade broadhead guy, the answer then becomes to me pretty simple, and put 4 veins on it and let it rip.
Yeah, I like that. What last kind of question as far as arrows go, Cam? Has anything really recently like advancements or innovation as far as arrow technology that really, is exciting or you think can happen or will happen?
I think right now the arrows, it's pretty stale, right? There's not a whole lot of movement. But I really think the arrow concept system is like, it needs to be talked about more, it needs to be utilized more, and it needs to be understood more. And it's such a complicated topic, and we do a terrible job of keeping it simple with the education of it. But simply put, that 6-inch carbon tube is going to enhance your arrow flight, it's going to make it penetrate better, and it's going to retain more energy downrange. And it's the only thing on the market that's going to do that. Like, I don't take these numbers for don't etch them into your gravestone, but George talks about, like, if you were to shoot an MMT with a arrow concept and shoot it at 60 yards, and then you take the same weight standard diameter shaft without arrow concept and look at the impact difference, you're gaining 8, 9, 10 feet per second. You can't do anything to your bow to gain 9 feet per second once you're maxed out. you can't do anything else to your arrow other than make it recover quicker and have better stability. And that happens with the arrow concept.
I like that, man. What man, I'm excited. What is your right now? What is your bow setup that you're training on, that you're getting better on? What's your full run through right now?
Shooting the Hoyt RX7, not the Ultra, the regular 30-inch axle. I'm shooting the NIS for 300 spine. I shoot titanium inserts because I'm a geek. And the titanium insert is like 30 grains. It's the perfect mid-weight. It's not too heavy to where I can't go heavier on my broadhead. And titanium is just a really cool material. 6-inch carbon arrow concept in that. And I shoot a 4-fletch Q2I on the back. I have the dialed archery Arxos sight. I've had really good luck with that. I'm shooting the Hamskea Epsilon Rest, Podium Archery stabilizers.
Which are really nice.
Yeah, they're so fair priced.
Mm-hmm.
Stabilizers are crazy when you look at pricing. Crazy. Mm-hmm. Then I have the quiver is the knock-on quiver, and it's actually really sweet. Nice. And I shoot the knock to it release.
Okay. You were messing around with that little back tension one for a little bit, the silverback. Are you done with that, or you just, I got to focus on my thumb button and really master that side? There it is.
Yeah. No, this is the silverback has been like the reason why I can shoot a thumb button correctly. Because if I ever find myself going back to like getting a little punchy, I just grab this and I'll be back in it. It's just mental.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like that, man. So this year you talked about it on the Exodus Outdoor podcast, where you had it came down to the Hail Mary, it came down to the bottom of the ninth for you in Ohio. And dude, it was a beautiful deer. But instead of getting in details about that deer, I want to just ask you to kind of, before we wrap things up, man, is, with a season like you had and having the luck that you've been having the last couple of years, and I don't want to say luck, I apologize for saying luck, but like with your ability to fill the last couple of years, how this past season, how did you endure it mentally and push through, man?
Man, it beat me up. I can't lie. It beat me up in a hurry. I went into the season like on a pretty like high, man. I was like, almost like I told you, if I draw back, I feel like that deer's gonna die. Mm-hmm. And wounded a buck in North Dakota, missed a buck a week later in Ohio, or a month later in Ohio. Got my ass handed to me in Kansas, where everyone told me like, oh, you're gonna be in your wheelhouse. It's gonna be so fun. And I flat out sucked out there. And what it took for me was just taking a break, man. I just had to take a break. I had to take a step back and like spend some time with the family and focus on other things, right? Get my mind off of how poor I was performing. And I went into that last hunt for that deer, my first hunt with a bow for him, and like no crazy high expectations, right? No pressure on myself. I was like, it's December 20th. I've already had a like just terrible season. I mean, it is what it is now. But it was just staying. I can't say that's not really a positive mindset, right? That's not like but it was just staying at it. Keep going. Don't give up. But I needed a refresher. I got back from Kansas November 21st. I didn't hunt again with a bow until December 20th. I just took a month off. I was like, I just need to reset. I shot my bow during that time. I gun hunted during that time, but I didn't pick my bow up again to hunt again until December 20th. Just needed a refresher.
Yeah. Yeah. I give you a lot of credit to take that time away and to step back a little bit and still go out there and enjoy it, because it's what you enjoy. Like you said, you went out with the gun and all that type of stuff, but you weren't beating yourself up for it and about it. And that is important. And this past week's episode, it actually dropped today with Clint Campbell, and we talked about habits. And Clint mentions in there, he's like, man, like when you're away from something, your love for it grows fonder. And he's like that old time expression, and it is the truth. You know what I mean? Like that is no matter what you do. And man, I'm sure that kind of did help you. Like you cleared your mind up. You're like, all right, listen, it can't go any more worse than that it has been, basically. And you go in there like, okay, let's see what happens. And man, you capitalize. So dude, like during that heat of the moment, for how crappy it's been and how frustrated, and knowing how the individual that you are, did the mind just go blank and you just let your muscle memory, everything take over? Or did you sit there and have to calm yourself down? Like how did that play out?
Well, it was everything happened, man.
Yeah.
Everything that you just said happened.
Yeah.
But I watched the deer for a really long time, and I was getting put into a position during that hunt where I needed to make something happen. So I kind of got oh my God, there he is. This is your chance. Don't screw this up. I got all of that out, and it came down to like, I need to make something happen. So late season hunt in Ohio, right? We're using corn. It's the king. At that time of year, there was snow on the ground, and I have this deer coming to this corn pile. He comes from, let's just say, the east, and then 7 does come from the west. So 2 different directions. I'm in between them. The does come. One doe catches me. She's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm in a basketball-sized tree, 2 sticks off the ground, in my full Sitka gear, looking like a balloon on a toothpick, and she picks me off. And he's just sitting there eating, right? And lights fading, and I was like, I need to get this buck to come move these does off, or I need to get these does out of here and have him like, oh shit, there's something going on. I got to get out of here. So hopefully he follows them. Either he goes back the way he became, he's out of my life. I come back tomorrow and try again. Right. So I just was sitting there in my saddle with my bow, and I just moved my bow like this, and the does turned around and walked away. He looked up, saw that they were leaving, and he followed them. So it ended up putting him right in front of me. So I kind of got all of the other mental stuff out while he was standing there. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I got to do something. Lights fading, look down at my phone. I'm like, you got like 4 minutes. You got to make something happen. So I was just in like, if he walks, I got to kill him. Yeah. And that's what happened. And it was awesome. Like a 7-yard shot. So it wasn't, I didn't have to like pull off a 40-yard shot or anything. Right. I stacked the odds.
Yeah. What I like about that is if you are able to walk yourself through all that, like you said, oh my gosh, I got to make something happen. But like if you walk yourself through that and then you flip that switch in like kill mode or whatever you want to call it, like the game mode, once you're there, like you said, man, earlier, like the only way it's going to mess up is if nature messes up for you. You hit a limb or the deer does something that deer do. But if you do everything in your power, if you get there, man, 9 times out of 10, it's good. Something good's going to happen. And that's awesome that you're able to do that. Because I'm on the fence, man. I'm like 50-50. Either I want a surprise, like, oh shit, I got to get this done like right now. And it's gone 50-50 sometimes. I'm like, dang it, what just happened? And there's like, I didn't have time to think. And then there's you watch it for so long and you work yourself up. But then you have to be able to battle through that and be like, okay, make it happen now. Like, go. But yeah, it's like a 50-50, man.
There seems to be like an amount of time that the deer has to be there. Like there was when I saw him come in, I was like, oh my God, like he's big. Yeah. And I'm thinking like, holy stuff. And then I'm starting to shake and stuff, but he was there long enough for me to get over it. If something would have happened sooner, I don't know, like maybe I would have fallen apart. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It just happened to work out.
That's awesome, man. Well, last thing, dude, other than practicing shooting your bow, anything else for this upcoming, spring or summer or anything that you have going on that you're excited for?
I mean, Exodus has so many big things in the works. It's going to be really hectic here at the office. So My turkey season is probably going to get messed up a little bit. I love turkey hunting and traveling for turkey hunting. I'm probably still going to try to sneak out and hit a new state, but we have so many big, exciting things coming that's really what I'm jacked up about. I mean, not that work is my life or anything, but I really believe in what we have going on, and there's some really big things, exciting things on the horizon. So that's what I'm most excited for.
Awesome, man. Dude, I appreciate you taking the time this morning to chat. And man, people, I'm telling you right now, go follow Cam and all the other guys over at Exodus Outdoor Gear. They're truly some of the awesome, most down to earth individuals. And if you're anything like Cam or I that nerd out over gear and arrows and all that type of stuff, I'm sure hopefully you enjoyed this one. But till then, everybody, check them out. We'll see you next week. Antler Up.